Monday's pod here. I don't know if we've ever gone solo ever. I don't know where Ghost is. So if anybody's got a beat on him in Canada, please let us know. Jason and our boy DJ are sick. So let's fly through this. If you guys got any questions, please let me know. I'd rather interact with you guys than interact with myself all day today. But we got the optimizer pulled up from windailysports.com. Jay, if you were listening and you want to sneak in and banter back and forth with me there, or if anybody from Discord wants to hop on, let me know. I'd love to have a guest on here, but let's do as many questions from you guys as possible. We'll start position by position here. I'm going to pull up the weather report on a different tab here just to see if anything else has changed. I know with the night game, it looks very iffy for San Francisco and Buffalo. Other than that, no, Pitt and Cincinnati, pretty much just cold. Seattle, New York, pretty much just cold. A little bit of wind there, I guess. Indy and New England, pretty much just cold. So cold out east, cold in the Midwest. Obviously, I'm in Chicago today, and it is only like 20 degrees outside, so very chilly there. Let's get back to quarterbacks. Looking at ownership right now, I'm going to sort that because we'll kind of start this off like a cash game mindset. For me in cash, I'm 100% playing Justin Herbert. I think most of the field's going to do the same thing here. We can see the ownership projections on windailysports.com have him for 17. I think it's going to be higher than that. I think in cash, it'll be closer to 50% of the field using Justin Herbert. For 5,600, no J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, one of the higher total games on the slate. That makes a ton of sense for Herbert to get a lot of passing work. Obviously, his legs are working for him too right now, which is great. So, yeah, Justin Herbert, I think, is far and away the best cash game quarterback this week. Anthony Richardson, I guess, similar thing. He's always going to get 30, 40 rush yards. That really helps his floor there, so he pretty much runs for a passing touchdown. Other than that, cash game-wise, I like Stafford because I really have a hard time deciding if I like Puka or if I like Cooper Kupp. Might as well just go with Stafford then if that is one of your issues. Jaden Daniels, obviously the best quarterback fantasy-wise, probably on the slate in terms of no weather kind of impacting him like we'll see with Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts, none of these guys are going to be that high owned in cash. So you can kind of get different if you want to there, but I think most of the field and myself just take Justin Herbert, the savings there, and move on. Let's talk about GPPs. I will sort by actual price. Where's the price here? Sorry. It's so weird not being able to banter back and forth with anybody. Are there comments? Here we go. All right. Is Herbert the best in cash on FanDuel? Let me pull up FanDuel. Ghost, where you at, buddy? You were my FanDuel guy. Let me pull up FanDuel pricing on another tab. I'll just use my phone. Fuck it. All right, let's see. I would say probably, looking at first glance, I'm not paying $9,200 for Hurts. Jaden Daniels, $8,800, no way. Herbert, $79. That's still a little pricey. I really like Kyler Murray on FanDuel. $7,700. I think he has a floor and a ceiling. That's fine for cash. Other than that, Drake May I like in tournaments, but no, not in cash. Yeah, I think on FanDuel, I would say Matt Stafford at 7,400 is probably a little bit more entertaining for me than Justin Herbert at 79, so I'll go Stafford. Which wide receiver do we pair with Herbert? I think it all depends on your build. We'll get into wide receivers in a little bit, so I will kind of talk about certain ways that I'm getting different because I will play Justin Herbert in some GPP, more the small field, single entry, like 300 people or less is probably where I'll play Justin Herbert. But in terms of upper tier quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels is definitely my favorite here at 7,200. Burrow, I'm not going to pick on the Steelers defense. I don't think that's where we get a ceiling game out of Burrow, but the guy's having a hell of a season. But really no ownership, 5%. I think it'll be less than that on Jaden Daniels. Tennessee, I know the volume against the Tennessee Titans isn't really there. People aren't throwing a ton against them, but they are a pass funnel defense. And I believe that they do have a couple key injuries here. Let me pull up that. I know L'Jarius Sneed's put on IR, so he's just really not going to play at all. Chidobe Awuzie is out, so one of the good corners, I guess, if any of them are good. He's probably the best one that is still healthy. So it's Jarvis Brownlee, Justin Hardy, and Roger McCreary, I guess, is still okay, but that's tough. That's a team you want to pass on. So no one's really running on Tennessee. So I really like that for Jaden Daniels, and I like the bringbacks, right? Obviously, the offense for Tennessee is going through Tony Pollard. It's going through Calvin Ridley. And for Washington, it is going to Terry McLaurin and it is going to Zach Ertz. So if you want a 3-2 stack that game, I don't think there'll be any ownership there. I'll never talk you off Lamar. I'll never talk you off Jalen. I spoke my piece on Joe Burrow. Baker Mayfield, I know DJ's article likes him a lot, 3%. Like, it's pretty interesting. Both these defenses suck. That is usually something that I am checking for when I'm making a tournament lineup because I do like a lot of back and forth on both sides of that. So, Buccaneers defense kind of checks the box that they suck. Carolina's defense obviously has been terrible this year, getting better the last couple of weeks, though. So I do think Carolina covers that game. If you can get the 4.5, 5 points still out there, don't mind that. CJ Stroud, it is what it is. I think Tyson Campbell is back for the Jaguars. If anybody's a Duval County fan here, I'm pretty sure he is back, which will be interesting. I don't think he can keep up with Nico Collins anyway, but this is not going to be as bad of a Jacksonville pass defense that we've seen all season long. Again, we will talk to receivers here in a minute. Any other questions, guys? Please, get me off my own tangents. I would love to answer your questions. But yeah, Derek was asking which wide receiver do we pair with Herbert. We'll get to that in a minute. So Stroud, it is what it is. You know who he's going to. He's going to Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz is pretty cheap. Nico Collins, probably one of the best plays on the slate in terms of actual equating player props to fantasy points. Books love him. I love him. Just if there's one question mark there, it's not even a question mark, is Tyson Campbell is likely going to play today. But again, Nico, absolute stud. We'll get to Taysom here in a bit. He is considered a tight end. We are going with quarterbacks to start. Kyler Murray, 2% owned. I think the total here is 45.5, bet up to 46. I love Kyler Murray. I think with how much we see the blitz from Minnesota, we should get a semi-ceiling game from Kyler and his legs. I know that hasn't been there of late. All his pass catchers, even Trey McBride, is still in the 5K range. I don't understand what's going on there. If this was 2 years ago, Travis Kelce being Trey McBride this year, he'd be priced at 7,500. Don't understand what DraftKings is doing there. So his stacks are so cheap. Minnesota is a pass funnel. And I really like a 3-2 stack in this game. So I like Kyler Murray. I like Marvin Harrison. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Love Trey McBride. It's zone blitz. Trey McBride has a anticipated 38% target share against zone blitz. That's all Brian Flores and the Vikings do. Obviously, you got Jordan Addison riding a heater on the other side there. Justin Jefferson has to get going eventually. This is a great matchup for him. Aaron Jones, this game's got a lot of stackability and 2% ownership on Kyler Murray. Again, these are just estimates. No one can ever project what the cards are going to turn over. But love that for Kyler Murray. Kirk Cousins, not really for me. Sam Darnold, I like that game, so I do like Sam Darnold a little bit. Matt Stafford, I think that's where we're going to answer that early question. Who was that? That was Sean for Herbert and FanDuel. I think I'd go Matt Stafford on FanDuel for $500 or less. Again, just has fantastic weapons against a terrible defense. And the Rams defense is struggling too. So I think we see a good back and forth, ugly shootout in New Orleans. Russell Wilson, no interest there. And I am a Russ Bus guy. Already talked about Herbert. Drake May is one of my GPP quarterbacks. So I'm doing a 3-max this week. I put in the playbook, I'm using Drake May, Kyler Murray, and Jaden Daniels in my 3-max. And then again, in small field GPPs, I'm going to use Justin Herbert just because, again, in the 80 model, he did project to be out the best points per dollar quarterback, and that makes sense. Again, no J.K. Dobbins, should see an emphasis on the pass game. And we are seeing the Chargers play a little bit quicker. That is one thing that I do like, again, in tournaments, is to find two teams that play quickly and that play each other and have struggling defenses, at least some sort of issue on the defense. Nick, so yeah, see you. Get in here, dude. I'm forwarding you the email. I don't know if you're under contract with the CBS show or anything, but I'm forwarding you the link here because it is awkward doing a live stream by myself. So check your email if you want to hop in. That'd be a lot of fun because it's kind of nerve-wracking doing this. I could do the First and Stix pod all the time by myself and rant for hours, but being on camera by myself is pretty weird. Yeah, questions. Thank you, Tim. Let's go. Let's get some interaction. 1 point PPR. Whew. All right. I would say if you need a floor, I like Brian Robinson here as the floor. And if you think that you're a big-time dog in your matchup, season-long questions, by the way, are very encouraged on this show. So please fire away. Obviously, this is playoff time. We need some wins. I need a win in my homes league here. And, if you need a ceiling, Jordan Addison. I think this game has a lot of back and forth here. But for a floor, I know I said I like pass catchers against Tennessee, but Brian Robinson and the offense, I want a piece of it. Not sure I trust the Gus thing, and I do have Brian Robinson at least projected for 1 catch and like 8.5 receiving yards. So, yeah. Levis or Young? Will's kind of balling right now. If it's, is this for DFS or is this for season long? I think I'm going to go Young. Tiki Smith is out for Tampa Bay. He's one of their better corners. He's going to play the nickel there. So I kind of like this whole Thielen thing today, and I hate Adam Thielen if anybody knows me. DFS, all right, sweet. Oh, fuck. That is a good question, man. Pardon my language. I think ceiling. So if this is DFS and this is a tournament, I think your best way, Millie Maker. Okay. If you're playing a Millie Maker, I think Will Levis is your guy. I don't think Bryce Young has like a 25 points in the bag at all. I don't know. Has he ever gone over 20 points in DFS? Probably not. Will Levis certainly could do that. He can chuck the ball. He's got a big arm, runs a little bit too, has better pass catchers. You know, playing against what I think is a pass funnel in Washington. Let's go with Will Levis there. I love how ugly you're getting with that. Don't expect to make money playing those two, but for your situation there, let's do it. But yeah, Drake May, one of my favorite GPP quarterbacks here. I always love picking on Indy. I prefer better offenses going against it. But again, this checks the box of bad defense against bad defense. So Drake May is probably going to be my second favorite GPP quarterback. Obviously, Jaden Daniels being number one. Let's go to running backs and see how we can make all this work. Again, if you haven't checked out the playbook on Win Daily Sports or the game-by-game breakdown, this week was fantastic. I love reading that too. And then DJ's article. So DJ's high on Gus Edwards. Let's see what his ownership's going to be. So Chase Brown against Pitt is going to be the chalk, apparently. That's pretty wild to me, but he is very considerable for cash. 6,200, I get it. Going to play a lot of, PPR like upside in the floor there. So he's not leaving the field. Alvin Kamara is probably one of my preferred cash game running backs. I don't think I'm very interested in tournaments using Alvin Kamara. Jamal Williams is back. Obviously, Taysom Hill is just a world beater recently, so it is what it is. Bijan Robinson up top here with ownership. Love him. Love that game. I do think that game can have like sneaky under abilities. So a ton of ownership as we're seeing here. Obviously, Herbert is very popular. Bijan Robinson, very popular. I do think Bijan Robinson is one of the best fantasy running backs in the NFL. So for him to be right around 20% when he's damn near a wide receiver, getting 4 or 5 catches for 50 yards every single week, everything he does on the ground after that is just an added bonus. It's hard to ever talk anybody off of him. Who was second with May? I'll get to receivers shortly. I'm assuming this is Bijan. Yeah, I like Bijan a ton. Ownership agnostic. I think he should be up in the 30s. It's a good game environment in the dome. Kyron Williams, I don't know, not really a Kyron guy. I feel like every time I fade him, he goes nuts, but it is what it is. He doesn't get passing down work. When I'm paying over $7K on DraftKings, I want passing down work. Chuba Hubbard, nothing wrong there. I mean, they paid him, so he's probably the first, second, and third down back. I eventually think we got to see some Jonathan Brooks, but who knows when that day may come. Bucky Irving, I cannot imagine his ownership is this low. I would love to fade him with everything I got, and it's tough to do it. We are seeing Sean Tucker a little bit last week. That is very interesting that he was getting goal line carries. But Bucky's player props, again, let's use just underdog for an example. See what his player props are at. I want to say the juice is on the over 2.5 catches, so he is going to run some routes, which is great. The thing I don't like is 12 carries, I believe is his player prop. But 5,800, you could do worse. And I want to say the player prop for Gus Edwards is like 13.5 carries, but obviously if Bucky's going to be involved in passing against the worst run defense in the NFL, I want to fade him. It just makes a lot of my lineups work going at that 5,800 range. So yeah, 59.5 rush yards right now on underdog, even money pretty much for Bucky Irving. 2.5 receptions, juice on the over, 20.5 receiving yards. So right around 13, 14 points. I think the 80 mile has him even higher than that because of the touchdown equity. So I do like Bucky Irving, unfortunately, as much as I want to come on here and tell you guys that he's going to be stupid chalk. I don't know how he's only 10 to 15% owned if we want to just kind of summarize that. Bucky's going to get interesting or get nasty and go white instead. I don't know. I don't know how much they want to use Rachaad White. Rachaad White has his ceiling games against teams where they are trailing. if you could tell yourself a story where Carolina gets up early on them and Tampa and Baker just got to chuck the ball, then yeah, Rachaad White's a great play. I just see this game being back and forth and no one really running away with it. Yeah, got the APP out on Ghost. Yeah, where the hell is he? No one even texted me this morning. I just get in the thing here. See, I believe I sent you the link too. I hope I did. So maybe Sia saves the day here and we get a beautiful voice, a beautiful face instead of my ugly mug on Sunday. Just, yeah. Will Levis was in the Millie last week. That's exactly. He's got that type of ceiling. All right, tight end question. I do prefer everybody wait till we get to that position. That would be ideal so I don't get on a tangent here with other positions. Ingram, Andrews, Disley, Ingram all day. All right, Jonathan Taylor. We'll just go the only other guy above 10%. Jonathan Taylor, I love him when Anthony Richardson's playing. I know we didn't see a whole lot of him last week. The game script kind of pushed him away there, but I think this is a great spot for him against New England. Again, both defenses I think are very, very beatable here. I like him a ton. So for cash, I am trying to do what I can do to get Alvin Kamara. I don't think I'm going to play Chase Brown in cash. I get it, 6,200. He's probably got a 3.5, 4 catch prop. I think the 80 model, I will pull that up. What do we have him for? Yeah, just under 4 catches. So a really good floor. But Alvin Kamara can have a 25, 30-point game here. So I'd rather go there or Bijan Robinson for that upper tier running back lock in cash. And then I'm playing Bucky Irving in cash. There's no way I'm fading that. I just think that his ownership is criminally low on here for the price and opportunity here. Let's go at the top. I think a great way to get different, and ownership will show this, is paying for one of these top 3 running backs here. I think Joe Mixon is probably in the best spot in terms of touchdown equity. I want to say he's like minus 250 to score today. That is insane. We'll get down to Najee. I think that's a very interesting tournament play this week that no one will play. Saquon Barkley, if you can afford him, you play him. Baltimore's not a matchup that I run to get Saquon Barkley in. But again, Saquon Barkley can take any single touch to the house at any single time, as we've seen all year long. Derrick Henry, it is what it is, right? I just think better plays are cheaper. So I love Bijan. Breece Hall, I'm probably not going to mess with. He's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, and there's rumors that we'll see a little bit more Braylon Hall. I don't want you to get scared if you get Breece Hall in season long. You're playing him if he is on your team. Moving down to Kyren Williams, already talked about him. Kenneth Walker, sub 10%. The Jets defense, I believe, is fully healthy coming off the bye, which is great. Not super interested there, though. Love Jonathan Taylor. James Conner, probably not for me against Minnesota. I'm going to use Kyler in the passing game. Aaron Jones, sub 10%. Pretty good environment here. I love this game. I think Aaron Jones could be very, very active, and for 6,500, has a lot of touchdown equity. One of those guys that gets 2 to 3 to 4 catches a game. Love that. Tony Pollard, 6%. I like Tony Pollard. If you guys see anything on Tajay Spears, I'm assuming he is going to pass concussion protocol and be active today. But again, with or without Spears, Tony Pollard is a guy that checks the box 15-plus touches a game. And Sia is here to save the day. Sia, what's up, man?
What is up? I mean, listen, Nick, I saw you solo, and I'm like, I got to keep this guy company, and I'm doing prep. I may as well do it with you.
I appreciate it, man. Anything different on the quarterback side before we get into running backs? I really appreciate you saving me here. It was nerve-wracking being alone here.
I know, man. I know it as well as anyone. So I don't know which quarterbacks you went through. I heard you say Jaden Daniels was a guy you liked. Certainly, probably somewhat of a contrarian play. I'm not looking at ownership. I see it on the screen right now.
Yeah, very low, 5% for Jaden. So the 4 that I talked about, Herbert being my lock in cash, and I think he's going to be the Fields lock in cash. So I'm just going to ride that. There's nothing wrong I had to say about him. Honorable mention, Matt Stafford, more of a FanDuel cash play guy for me because he is cheaper than Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
But in tournaments, I'm mainly a single entry and 3 max player. Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, and Drake May are the 3 that I'm playing. I don't love Drake May, but the price and what I can build around him this week is very intriguing to me. Is there anybody that I'm missing that you like a lot this week?
So, like, my favorite quarterback, and this is kind of gross. I mean, obviously, Justin Herbert is in everybody's conversation, so I feel like I have to point him out, especially for cash game players. Bryce Young's my favorite because he's 4,700, and if I pair him with David Moore, I can pretty much do anything I want. Now, if you're afraid to do that, maybe you do it on the afternoon slate only, which is a 3-game slate, which kind of mimics the Thanksgiving slate if you enjoyed or had some success there. I get Bryce Young's upside is capped. I totally get that, but I do think he's sort of growing, and when you play Tampa, there's always, in my opinion, the potential to have 2 to 3 touchdown passes. If one of those goes to David Moore, if David Moore can somehow enjoy the target share he got last week, which was pretty impressive, had 10 targets, 81 yards, and a touchdown, and looked pretty good doing it. I think, again, I built a lineup with I haven't built a lot of my single entry lineups yet, but I built that lineup with Bryce Young and David Moore. It allowed me to get like Puka Nacua, Taysom Hill, who I like. We'll talk about the other positions in a little bit, but there was a lot of like high flyer, like Bucky Irving was in that lineup, but like there was a lot of expensive guys too. Nico Collins was in that lineup. It just allows me to do so much. So I'm kind of hoping we get some Bryce Young upside.
4,700, 3% ownership. I think I'm on the same page as you. As I like that game environment in general. I think both defenses are very susceptible to giving up a lot of points. And 4,700 for a quarterback, stacking him with David Moore is pretty much paying the same price for just one Jaden Daniels. So you can get crazy good builds doing that. I prefer, this is gross. We'll get into wide receiver. I'm not going to skip forward to wide receivers. All right. So Bryce Young, anybody else that you like a ton?
Let me take a quick look. You mentioned Kyler Murray. I think he's interesting. I don't think I'm going to get to Stafford, but I do want pieces of that game, and I totally understand the Stafford argument. I'm going to take Puka Nacua. I consider taking his prop over, I think it was 79.5 receiving yards. Not something I've actually put in, but something worth considering. Other than the quarterbacks you mentioned, no. I mean, again, I like Bryce Young because he's 4,700 and has cheap pass catchers. Outside of that, I don't think I'm interested in much.
Nice. All right. I love it. Conviction. And we can't play everybody. That is one thing I love about everybody at Win Daily. We're not telling you to play 100 people.
Right.
We'll let you know where we're at. All right, running backs. I went through the top of the board. I think Alvin Kamara is probably one of the better cash plays. Ownership is going to recognize that as well. We're looking at mid-30s in ownership. Love Bijan Robinson. Love that game environment. Chargers defense is a solid defense, but I was kind of describing Bijan Robinson as like a mid-tier wide receiver who gets 60 to 70 rush yards as a floor too. So there's just nothing I'll ever say wrong about Bijan Robinson. I think for the workload that we're seeing, he should be in the 8K price range. I like Jonathan Taylor because I like that game environment, similar to you talking about like Bucky Irving, bringing it back on the other side of Bryce and David Moore. Chuba Hubbard, same thing. I think it's a great game environment where we see a lot of points. I really like Aaron Jones this week because I love that game. Anything there like in the 6K and above range, so Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, no ownership, Tony Pollard, Jones, Connor, anything like that?
Of those that you mentioned, I think Connor and Aaron Jones are the most interesting as contrarian plays, and I'm kind of like gazing at the ownership. Yeah, those are relatively. I'm actually surprised Aaron Jones is even approaching 10% because there's so many other running backs in the conversation, like your Alvin Kamara's, your Bucky Irving's, Chase Brown obviously makes a lot of sense if you're building cash game lineups. Actually, those three running backs in a cash game lineup make a lot of sense. But Bijan Robinson's probably my favorite on the slate. Outside of last game against Denver before the bye, they were getting blown out. So Bijan wasn't really in the conversation. But the two prior games, he had 19 and 20 carries. I mean, clearly the Tyler Algier experience is taking a back seat to the best running back on the team. So Bijan's definitely my favorite in that 6K range. I think Aaron Jones is like, I'm noticing, and you probably already covered this. I mean, Sam Darnold's pretty popular. I'm just noticing that he's in a lot of builds, and that's going to be with Addison or Justin Jefferson. I think maybe a double leverage spot could be your Aaron Jones play, and then you get out of that game, or you correlate that with one Arizona Cardinal and call it a day. So in the 6K range, I think Aaron Jones is an interesting contrarian play. Chase Brown, and a good volume play. Not really interested in anybody else, though.
Nice. All right. We are lockstep there. Bucky Irving, I think we both like him a ton. It is what it is. I figured Bucky would be like 30% owned at 5,800. I'm seeing 13% here at the Win Daily Optimizer, and I've seen like 15 elsewhere and 9 elsewhere. So I think 15 is probably the ceiling that we're looking at compared to other optimizers here. I thought he'd be like 25, 30%. 5,800, I feel like he's damn near a free square.
Yeah, I kind of think that too. I wonder why the ownership it hasn't crept up towards 20. Maybe people are still afraid, like, Sean Tucker might steal some carries, and obviously Rashad White's very much in the conversation. The cool thing about Bucky, he's getting it through the air and through the run game, and he's been so good with his rushing attempts. So I don't know, maybe people are going down and like getting cheap with guys like Gus Edwards. I'm not exactly sure why that ownership isn't going up, but I'm a fan.
I was just scrolling down to Gus, 7-8%. I've seen 10 this morning at other sites. Like, it's not that high. So that's what I was thinking. Like, where are people getting the money to not play Bucky? And like you said, he's getting it done in the air now too. The sports books, I was using Underdog as a reference for everybody prior to you hopping on, had the juice on the over 2.5 receptions. So this is like a good 2.5 down roll for Bucky Irving, which is very valuable at 5,800 against the Panthers. So I like that a ton. Anybody below Bucky that you're interested, like ETN, interesting game environment with Trevor Lawrence coming back, probably not something I want to invest in. Jaylen Warren obviously gets 3 or 4 catches a game, 5, 6, 7 carries as a floor. Anybody down there that you like, or is this the weekend to kind of play the mid to upper tier running backs? Like you said, I love Aaron Jones. I can't believe that no one's playing him. So that's something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, Aaron Jones certainly makes sense. I don't think, I mean, Gus Edwards would be the only consideration. In that low 5K range, there's really nobody. I mean, Braylon Allen would have been popular if Breece Hall was going to be out, but it looks like he's trying to play. So, no. I mean, Jaylen Warren, interesting at 5,500, but no, it's Bucky Irving's as low as I'm going to go. I'm not playing Gus Edwards.
Any love for Kamani Vidal or no?
No.
Okay, I'm with you.
I mean, here's the thing. There's just too many good, like, cost-efficient running backs. And again, it could be a little chalky, but you put Bucky Irving and Chase Brown in a lineup, the volume for each of those guys, and I'm not saying I'm playing both of those in the same lineup, but the volume for each of those guys, it's just going to dwarf. And I understand there's the cost savings on Vidal and guys like Edwards, but the volume and the opportunities just too good to pass up in that upper 5, low 6K range.
Yep, 100%. I think there's cheap wide receivers we'll get into right now that are much more valuable than the cheap running backs. But if you play Gus Edwards, you have direct leverage on everybody playing Herbert, and you just better pray he gets in the box once or twice, because I don't think 13 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown really gets it done. But
frankly, my solution there is just not to play Justin Herbert. I've played him in the prop market. I have him over 1.5 touchdown passes. It's like minus 115. I think there's ways to play Justin Herbert where you don't have to play him in DFS. With that said, I think he's still a good play, but I just don't. That's not where I want to create double leverage. Like I want to create leverage in another game with a running back that I know can smash. Like Aaron Jones would be a great example of that. Obviously, he's a lot more expensive than Gus Edwards, but that would be a great example of those who take Addison or Jefferson, Sam Darnold, get it with Aaron Jones.
Hell yeah. Yep. I think you're dead on. And honestly, dude, thank you again for hopping on. Look at that. When I was going solo, we had like a little over 100 viewers, and I put one tweet with Sia Najah's name in it. We already doubled the entrance. That's here. Awesome. So let's go. That's awesome. You got the reach and you got the content. So let's do it. Wide receivers. Let's start 7K and above. Let's put Garrett Wilson in that same thing. So we got both Jets guys, 6,900, 7K coming off a bye. Obviously, the whole world is trashing Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a decent matchup in the air against Seattle, but I fear that I have no Jets at all. If anything, I think I'm interested in the chalk Jets defense. It's like, for me, I'd rather play Terry McLaurin. I think he's one of my favorite GPP wide receivers on the slate. Like you mentioned with Jaden Daniels, no one wanted to play him. I love Terry McLaurin here. I think all the corners with Awuzie out too for Tennessee are very beatable. Terry McLaurin is one of the league leaders in first read targets. So like he is getting schemed the football, and Jaden Daniels kind of just has tunnel vision for him and Zach Ertz, and that's it. And again, Brian Robinson a little bit banged up coming into this game. No Austin Eckler. This should be a game where Jaden Daniels and the Washington offense need to pass it a lot. And again, Tennessee is a great run defense. I love Terry McLaurin here. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, like that is the hardest decision I have every single week. I feel like I like to play Cooper Kupp against teams that play a lot more man coverage, which we will see the Saints play. And I like Puka more against zone. But then Puka has monster games against teams that play man. Cooper has monster games against people that play zone. So if you just want to double stack it and shoot for the moon with Stafford, I will never talk you off that. It's just a very hard decision for me. Nico Collins, 7,900. You mentioned him. I think in terms of player props, he is leading the market for wide receivers. If you equate like receptions, yardage, touchdown equity into fantasy points, he is number one for the books. AJ Brown is a 1B, I guess. I love him too. What do you like up top? Because there are so many studs, and like Terry McLaurin seems to be my favorite one. And I feel like Terry McLaurin is a guy we don't usually pay 7,000 for. And that's, I think the field's reaction too is like, yeah, that's a little too expensive for a guy that only gets 5 catches for, 60, 70 yards, but he can go for 6, 7 catches today and $150 and 2 because you can beat Tennessee deep. So what are your thoughts on these upper tier wide receivers? Because it is the hardest decision I've had all week.
Well, first of all, like I'm not playing McLaurin, but you're starting to convince me a little bit because obviously, like nobody's going to play him, and there's so many narratives going against Washington right now, which mainly, as it affects Terry McLaurin, is the lack of creativity with respect to Cliff Kingsbury, and that narrative out there that like defensive coordinators have completely figured him out. Terry McLaurin just kind of lining up on one side gets relatively taken care of, and then of course the Jaden Daniels narrative of like, is he broken? Is he still injured? Is he being affected by the Cliff Kingsbury offense? That all lends itself to, for not like, now that I'm hearing you, Stix, like for me to want to play a lineup or two with Jaden Daniels, who I wasn't otherwise going to play with Terry McLaurin, because there's no way you can have Noah Brown out targeting for consecutive games, out targeting Terry McLaurin. Like, it's not like Cliff Kingsbury isn't aware of this stuff too, and isn't hearing some of the rumblings from the media and people like us. So I get the Terry McLaurin argument. It's super contrarian in my like smaller single entry lineups. I think I could play him, but I'm probably going to go the route of the other guys. I like Puka Nacua way more than Cooper Kupp. I don't care what the coverage is. He just seems to find the ball. He's so good at the point of catch. I like his over when it comes to receiving yards. He's just a complete animal. Nico Collins, another guy. You were the first on the Nico Collins train 2 years ago, and here we are. He's like one of the best receivers in the league. So I'm trying to build lineups, and this is where the build comes in with Bryce Young, Young and David Moore. I can get AJ Brown in those lineups. I can get AJ Brown with Nico Collins or Puka Nacua in those lineups. And so that's kind of where I'm headed. I'm trying to pay up at receiver, pay down with my stack, and then be in that middle range with my running backs. And that's going to be somewhat popular. But again, I'm also the guy that's playing somewhat smaller contests. Maybe there's 300 people in my single entries, like a $100 SE or $50 SE. Maybe there's as many as 600. I can still get away with that build in those. Once I get to the thousands and 2000s and 5000s, that's when I think I need to change it up a little bit. But I really like, if I'm going to rank these receivers in this range that we see right now, it would be Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, and then AJ Brown. As far as the other guys, I'm out on the Jets guys. McLaurin, interesting. Mike Evans, also interesting. I have his prop. I took it at over 60.5 receiving yards. It's now 64.5. Still like it there. I just kind of worry about the volume. However, if this is the back and forth that I expect it to be, or that I'm hoping it's going to be with Bryce Young, that keeps Mike Evans involved the entire game. And now you could have a huge game with 10 or 11 targets, 7 or 8 catches, a touchdown or two, and then still enjoy the fruits of the Bryce Young stack as well.
Yeah, I love Mike Evans. I think he's probably going to be a core play for me this week. Mm-hmm. One guy you did not talk about a ton, and I guess I like that because I know you have a great audience, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about him. I am seeing this 10%. I love Justin Jefferson this week.
Yeah,
I love that game in general. You mentioned using Aaron Jones as like a one-off piece to this game. I love going Kyler, McBride, potentially Marvin Harrison. We'll get to him in a little bit, running it back with Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson. But I love that you're using two of these upper tier guys. I don't think the field is going to have the money to use two of these guys like you are. Like, if the lowest people are going for the most part, especially in those smaller single entries, is going to be Justin Herbert. So the fact that you're using Bryce Young, I think that does give you a significantly different lineup. It's kind of my mindset with using Drake May, because I'm probably going to pair him with Kayshon Boutte at 3,400 and then try to jam in two of these guys. And one of those guys for me this week is probably going to be Justin Jefferson. My second favorites are being Nico Collins and AJ Brown. I love what you said about Puka. He just has the juice. Like, Cooper Kupp is kind of, like, I don't know, catches a slant, runs for 3 or 4 yards after the catch. Like, he's a guy that's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, where Puka Nacua has like explosive ability. He's got break tackle ability, yards after catch. And he, like you said, his high pointing the football is fantastic. He has great hands. I don't know. Like, I'm not an NFL scout by any means, and I don't watch a ton of college football, especially early on in the season, but how he fell that late with those ball skills is very impressive. So great scouting by the Rams.
Yeah.
Mentioned Terry McLaurin. We're both out on the Jets' whole situation. Their offense is a disaster. George Pickens, I don't know. I'd rather have Mike Evans. I think this is a good volume game for Mike Evans. I love that prop earlier in the week at 60.5 receiving yards. That's a great closing line value no matter what. I haven't projected conservatively on the 80 model for 66.5 receiving yards, but a significant upside in the red zone. So I do like Mike Evans a ton this week. Not really on that Seattle and Jets game, so maybe something that wins the Millie Maker this week are the two games that like both of us are like obviously avoiding. What are your thoughts on Drake London, 6,500?
Yeah, I like Drake London quite a bit. I mean, I really want pieces of that game. I think you can play lineups with Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and frankly, that might fit well with the Justin Herbert stacks. Or there's so many ways to play that game. So again, a Justin Herbert stack with a Ladd McConkey or maybe a Quentin Johnston in kind of a bounce back spot. You run it back with 2 Atlanta Falcons. I think all of that makes sense. I'm not going to play as much Drake London just because I just talked about some of those more expensive receivers that I like. But I do think, he's going to fit into some lineups that don't play Bijan Robinson. In other words, I might have some 2 or 3 running back builds that don't have Bijan. Most of them will. And in that case, I might have Drake London because I think Drake London could absolutely explode.
Yeah, and he's, in terms of expected target shares on the slate in the 80 model, he is top 10. So I always like to find those guys too. Like, all right, where's the potential value coming from? Drake London is a wide receiver 1 at 6,500 on DraftKings with a lot of projected volume. Very good spot there. Not really into Zay Flowers, but I fear that game just absolutely shoots out and no one can really afford stacking that game. So I'm interested to see how, like, people that do go play that game, the contrarians of the DFS world, how they build it. I'm excited to see that. Ladd McConkey, 6,100. See, I don't know if you know what happened, but a couple weeks ago, I think it was the Saints game that he went absolutely nuts on. That week of the podcast, I called Ladd McConkey a missionary man, as in, like, he's going to be 5 receptions, 50 yards, just pure boring. And he went off that game. I think he had $120 and 2 scores. This is when he was like 4,900 to 5,200 range. Now he's 6,100. Yes, he's going back home to Georgia. Great matchup here with the Falcons. I just don't like paying a peak price with peak ownership at the same time. And that's what we're seeing here with Ladd, projected for almost 20% ownership, the highest price we've seen with him on DraftKings. And there's something about Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know why I still just truly believe in this man. He is getting a lot of double coverage this year too, but I can't fathom paying, even though it's $100 more, but paying higher price for Ladd McConkey than Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm not playing Ladd McConkey.
I'm out on Ladd. All right, you are too.
I'm out on Ladd McConkey. By the way, I mean, this is me just kind of reading into things a little bit, but he still doesn't look completely healthy. I mean, I know he had that shoulder issue, but like even just getting up from some of the tackles last week, he looked like he was like really. I mean, he's a great football player, and that's part of it, right? He's going to put himself on the field. But it really looked like he was one hit away from having to sit out for a half or something. So
every time he catches it, it looks like that.
It really does. And you can tell, like, sometimes you can kind of see his face. You can see him like gritting it out, like good for him. But like at a certain point, those injuries are going to catch up to you. Maybe it's not this game, but either way, to your point, I can pay, whatever it is, $100 less or $200 less for guys, or $300 or $400 less for guys that they won't have the same volume, but absolutely could go off. Marvin Harrison, Tank Dell. Well, how about leverage off Nico Collins? Tank Dell could have that game against, of all teams, Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley against Washington. He is really kind of exploded, and it wouldn't shock me if he has, 1 or 2 touchdown catches. I mean, he's kind of done that. So again, I would rather play Marvin. And you liked Kyler Murray, like a Kyler stack with Marvin. I mean, it gets kind of expensive. Marvin and Trey McBride. And you bring it back with a Viking, like an Aaron Jones, for example, like that could be a break the slate type move. No, I'm out on Ladd. I'd rather play Quentin Johnston and just hope he gets 5 or 6 targets again and actually catches 1 or 2 and one lands in the end zone.
Yeah, well, actually catches 1 or 2 would be nice. I like Josh Palmer too at 4,300. But yeah, Ladd McConkey, we're both going to be out. I think he's fine in cash, but if you're playing Justin Herbert in cash, you probably don't need to double him up with Ladd McConkey. Love what you said about Tank Dell. Ridley makes a ton of sense. Any love for Darnell Mooney? He was a DFS favorite a couple of weeks ago for a good, 2-3 week span. His price is now back in the 5s where I think it belongs, but he is a very good route runner. Atlanta passes a ton. If this game goes, he's certainly going to be highly involved, and no ownership's really there. 8%, I think it's probably less than that. Do we like Darnell Mooney?
Probably not. And I understand why his ownership is so low, because people are going to want to play Brian Thomas or go up to Marvin Harrison or Ladd McConkey. I do worry. Like, I don't know if he's 100%. I assume he is, but I kind of have one of these biases where, like, I'm afraid of some sort of lingering soft tissue injury. So I'm out on. I like Mooney as a receiver, but I'm out on him this week.
Got it. Are you buying into Brian Thomas Jr.? So
No.
it is Trevor Lawrence's first game back, and that's what worries me a little bit. Like, I love to find the wide receiver ones that are priced in this 5K range usually. So Calvin Ridley checks that box damn near every single week. I have no reason to tell anybody not to play him. He's on a heater right now. Will Levis loves him. Solid matchup with Washington. I think Washington could score a lot in this game, so I like Ridley a ton. Brian Thomas also checks that box, but I think I want to wait and see. I'm contemplating using him in cash because I do think in single entry cash games, he's going to be closer to 25% owned and does have like slate breaking ability as we've seen a couple times this year. So I think in cash, I may just ride the wave here of the public loving Brian Thomas, but in tournaments, I want nothing to do with him. I'm interested to see that game too. Tyson Campbell is going to, I believe, is active. Last I refreshed at 10:30 Central Time that he is going to play. So we'll see what happens there. I'm just interested to see how rusty he is, I guess, for lack of better terms. Let's go down a little bit more here. Michael Pittman with no Josh Downs. Any interest there? 5,200, fair price. But I think, Missionary McConkey, 5 for 50. That's probably what we're getting with Michael Pittman. He just looks so slow. Obviously, he's dealing with a lot of body injuries. He's a big boy that takes big hits often. Yeah. And, tip of the cap to him. He gets up, he plays through it. But I want guys that can break a 60-yard touchdown. I know it doesn't happen every single week for every player in our lineup, but that's kind of like a skill set that I want. Like you talked about, Quentin Johnson certainly could go 3-4 catches for $120 and 1 or 2. I don't get that with Michael Pittman at all, unless this game is just an absolute shootout where he can go 8 for 80. I have no interest in Michael Pittman.
If this was in Indianapolis, I think it might be a different analysis. But the weather's not going to be ideal. And, Alec Pierce looks like he's playing. So we'll see what's going on with the receiver core. But I'm kind of out on I know you like Drake May. And I like Drake May as a player, but I think I'm just completely out on this game altogether.
Fair. And I think that's probably a good decision. I made good money with Drake May last week, but it wasn't because of Drake May. It was because it allowed me to have Cortland Sutton and Josh Jacobs in the Packers defense. So that's kind of what I'm using Drake May again for. And maybe you're making the smarter move. Just if you're going to punt all the way down to Bryce Young. My favorite stack with Bryce Young, I'm not going to be on David Moore. I like Adam Thielen, and I never like Adam Thielen ever. But 2%, I figured he'd be very popular. He's probably going to be in my cash game on the other side of Bucky Irving. His player props are like 4 catches, 45 yards. Tiki Smith is out for Tampa Bay. Obviously, Adam Thielen, first game back was last week, so a little bit more of a pitch count. I think that this is a game that he can get up and go. And Jalen Coker's out, and Jalen Coker also kind of shared some inside snaps with Adam Thielen. So Thielen should be the guy in the middle of the zone for Tampa Bay. I think this is a really good floor game for him. Do you have anything wrong to say about Adam Thielen?
No, I like Adam Thielen a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Thielen, Leggett, who was just a couple hundred more, and David Moore are definitely all in play. And it just to me, so Adam Thielen didn't get a ton of volume, but he did have a lot of important catches last week. And I do think that was his first game back. Of course, he's not going to be running as many routes as some of the other guys, but that is going to increase. I think Thielen has way more red zone and touchdown equity, but the David Moore price at 3,500. I know that's totally chasing, but I'm willing to chase
3,500.
Yeah, he's 3,500. I'm completely punting on that stack or on the singular David Moore lineup. So I like Thielen. I'm just I'm trying to get lucky with David Moore and saving 1,300 at the same time.
Respect. All right, I get it. Yeah, and I don't sure it's chasing because he had 10 targets, but again, his 3,500. So it's an educated chase. You're taking the punt if he gets 8, 9, 10 points. Anything after that is just free money. So
right.
I love that. Josh Palmer, I do like a lot in this matchup. His air yards are going up the past 3 weeks. I think that this is someone they're starting to scheme to get open. He was their wide receiver 1 pretty much all of last season. I think he's got some juice here. I've feared that Herbert is kind of losing trust in Quentin Johnston, but that is just my mind saying that. I just believe in Josh Palmer because I saw him be so successful last year, and he gets open. So someone I like a little bit. Large field, I don't hate Michael Wilson Jr. Does have an uptick in expected targets per routes ran against his own blitz. So I do like Michael Wilson there. Anybody as an absolute punt other than your boy David Moore, I like Adonai Mitchell. He's going to be 10% owned. So that worries me, but I like that game a little bit. I think that game is very risky, like you said. I feel like I want to go more towards Bryce Young now with you instead of playing Drake May, but something about Drake May and his rushing, but dude, that dude doesn't ever slide. I don't know what his deal is. He's going to get hurt out there one day, but I don't know. He literally just takes massive hits all the time. But yeah, Donnie Mitchell, I get it. I like him. I think he's also a high A-dot guy, but I think he's going to get moved in the slot a lot this week, so I don't hate him. Anybody besides Adane and David Moore that you like a lot?
Yeah, you mentioned Kayshon Boutte. I think he's going to be interesting. What is he at? 3,400 now. He's usually in that 3,400, 3,500 range. I mean, he's not exactly getting the volume that I kind of wanted him to get when I was playing him. I'm not like I said before, like the only punt receiver I'm playing is David Moore because I'm paying up at the receiver position. So there's not a lot that I love down here.
Respect. All right. I like it. Tight ends. Let's start at the top. Trey McBride is the best tight end every single week in fantasy football. Obviously, Brock Bowers is maybe 1A or 1B to that conversation, but he is not on this slate. I don't understand how Trey McBride is not 6,500 on this slate. So it makes I don't love double stacking Kyler. It really worked for me, I think, one time this year that was at Miami. But I'd still kind of play Kyler to use his legs and just single stack him because it's very rare that he's going for 250 and 2 or 3 through the air, which is kind of what I'm looking for when I'm double stacking. But Trey McBride, 5,800, way too cheap. Is probably where I'm going in cash games. But do you have anything? Let's go 4,500 and above. So Cade, Pitts, Ingram, Taysom Hill is a world beater, and Trey McBride.
Well, I'll tell you, I am playing 3 tight ends this week. It's TJ Hawkinson at 4,400, breaking the rules here. Taysom Hill and Trey McBride. And I'm going to have a lot of 2 tight end lineups because for a couple of reasons. Trey McBride's not a tight end and Taysom Hill's not a tight end. And yet I get to play them in the tight end and the flex spot. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. The Taysom Hill ceiling is tremendous. The Trey McBride ceiling is tremendous. I think Hawkinson is more of a salary relief play for me because I do think the volume could get there for him. And that's what we're seeing in his popularity as well. What's his projected ownership here? It's certainly 13%.
Yeah, Hawkinson's going to be one of the favorites, but he's 4,400.
Yeah, and it makes sense. But yeah, it's those 3 tight ends for me. And Taysom Hill is my priority. I do think in Kyler Murray lineups, you could just play, like you said, just single stack him with Trey McBride and then do what you want on the Viking side. But again, we have to start treating Trey McBride like a receiver because that's what he is.
Love that. I think that's a great analysis. Going down to the mid to low 4s, Hunter Henry grades extremely well for me. I think it's like damn near 5 catches. Hunter Henry never does anything when I play him, so beware. I like him again this week. I think he's more of a cash play. I don't love his ceiling. That's in large field tournaments where I am using Drake May. I'm just going to go with Kayshon Boutte with the air yards and hope that this is a game. We've been talking about the outside weakness of the Colts secondary. That's where we want to go every single week. And for the most part, I guess maybe this isn't an offense we really want to support a ton of, but that's where I'm going when I'm playing Drake May. I'll have a little bit of Hunter Henry, but for $200 more, TJ Hawkinson, I don't care about the ownership. That is such a better play.
Yeah.
Any love for Cade Otton? You didn't mention him. Everybody wanted to play him. He did get to the 5K price range. Now it's back in the 4,500 spot. I feel like that's more fair. Kyle Pitts, I always want to believe in, but I just can't do it. I just feel like everything that this slate is showing me screams I want to pay all the way up for Trey McBride, or I'm paying down to Zach Ertz and finding a way to use Jaden Daniels with him.
I think Cade Otton's interesting. I mean, we saw that the targets go down quite a bit with Mike Evans back. If you think that game is going to be a shootout, and if you think the Panthers are going to really put pressure because they're going to score on the Bucs, I could see some sort of stack with Bryce Young, and then you run it back with 2, and that might be Cade Otton might be one of those 2 with Bucky Irving or with Mike Evans.
Yeah.
But I'll probably not get to Cade Otton ultimately.
Yeah, I really don't like any punt tight end at all. Jade in the background. Tommy Tremble. You know how many times I've tried to tell myself Tommy Tremble's a good route runner? He was a stud at Notre Dame. He's a big boy. And then Jatavion Sanders, who I think was either undrafted or a last round draft pick, and his injury sucked last week. I had a lot of him because I was stacking that game with Patrick Mahomes. Can't remember why. I can't think of his name of all people. But yeah, I ran it back with Jatavion Sanders for the value, and he was having one hell of a game. I think he had 6 for 50 at half. And then obviously hurt his neck. I think he's good to go. Obviously not going to play this week, but nothing severe career ending, which is great because that looked nasty. Tommy Tremble, I never want to talk about again. Are you okay just skipping over that comment? Because this dude never does anything.
I mean, that's one of those plays where you've just stacked everywhere else and you just need a $2,800 tight end, but it's a no for me.
Yeah, just get like if he scores a touchdown, that stack's going to be amazing. But that is
Yeah.
like it. You're praying for a touchdown. Let's get a couple questions in here. Tight end's pretty easy. That's what I am thinking. Like, all right, don't reinvent the wheel. Trey McBride should be 6,500, and he's not. I'm just going to play Trey McBride. I have one rule, Sia. I'm sorry to mention it when a week that you're very heavy on. I just don't play Taysom Hill. So the weeks that he goes up, I accept it and move on. I've never gotten it right. So I just
keep
quit.
something in mind, though. The reason I'm finally coming around to Taysom Hill is
Playing wide
because,
receiver.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, they don't have any pass catchers. And it's a really good way to get leverage off Kamara because I'm not playing Taysom Hill with Kamara. I'm playing Taysom Hill actually in lineups without Kamara. So I'm hoping he gets a couple rushing touchdowns, some receiving yards. Maybe he throws it like with Mason Tipton and who are the receivers I'm forgetting? You've got
Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
Oh, MVS, right. And there's one more I'm forgetting. But either way.
I mean, Kevin Austin Jr. is running routes. He was kind of good in college, but I don't think he's a pro. Dante Pettis is getting routes.
Dante Pettis. He's forgotten. I think Dante Pettis is underrated. I'm putting that out there.
He was fast. I always thought he'd kind of get some routes run for the Bears a couple of years ago when they brought him in, but no. And then they got Cedric Wilson, who I think is starting to lean out of that offense. But yeah, it's just a group of nobodies is what you're saying.
There's also some coach speak going on with the Saints. So if you want to buy into that, by the way, there's some coach speak about Marvin Harrison too, that was delivered a couple hours ago, but there's some coach speak about Taysom Hill and really making sure he gets the ball. So something to consider there as well.
He's an awesome football player. So I mean, for 5K, arguably, I think we could say that's a discount because he's like half quarterback, half receiver, half tight end. Right. He's like Man Bear Pig from South Park, if you ever watch that. But he gets it done. And my rule has just been every time I play him, I get him wrong. So I'm just going to sit on the sidelines. And if you guys crush with Taysom Hill, I'm okay with that because
fair enough.
I don't want to lose sleep over when I got Taysom Hill right and wrong. But again, he is getting in. He's probably the most active in the offense he's ever been in his career.
Right.
So I get it. I like it a lot. Defense, I don't really like to talk about defense a whole lot. Is there anybody that you're going out of your way to pay up for? Like the Steelers being 3K and no one playing them. Joe Burrow continues to like shake his hand after every single throw. I don't know if it's anything to worry about, but the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is healthy, 1 and 2, amazing. So I feel like for 3K, I don't care if they're on the road. It's a division game. Division games usually go well under the total. I think this is a good spot for them to have like a 7 or 8 points, which is pretty much all we're looking for. Other than that, like I like the Rams a little bit.
Yeah, I so far I've been living in the 2,500-ish range. I think the Jets, even though I like the Seahawks to win that game, I think the Jets are interesting. I think the Patriots are interesting because of who's at quarterback for Indianapolis and the lack of receivers. So I'm generally paying down with those two teams. I think I think the Seahawks are interesting at 3,200 if you want to play the other side of that Jets game. But to me, this is definitely like there were no pay up options where I was like, oh, this team could go off. I think the 2,500 teams could go off just as likely as some of those teams up top.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a quick recap. Any other questions in here? Here we go. Ridley or McBride in the flex? I'm assuming that's probably a DFS question because their price is so close.
Yeah.
I'll let you go for. I mean, I love Trey McBride.
Yeah, I think they're both good. I think in maybe a bigger tournament, a bigger field, maybe Ridley makes a little bit more sense because he's just not going to have as much ownership. But I'd be willing to play McBride in pretty much every lineup.
Love it. I'm with you there. He is safe and he is an absolute workhorse. All right, quarterbacks. Give me 1 for GPP and 1 for cash.
Ooh, okay. Forgot about what you guys do at the end of the shows. Okay, well, 1 for GPP is definitely Bryce Young. 1 for cash is Justin Herbert.
All right, I'm going to go. No one is paying up for quarterbacks. So for GPP, I do think Jaden Daniels is my favorite. I believe in the 80 model here that Tennessee is a team you just want to throw on continuously. And then cash, Justin Herbert all day long. For running back, let's go 1 upper tier, just core play, and then 1 value play.
The upper tier play is Bijan Robinson at 7,300. And these are going to be chalky, by the way. The value play is Taysom Hill. No, just kidding. I mean, it kind of is Taysom Hill, but it's Bucky Irving at 5,800.
Yep, I'm going to double down with you on Bucky. As much as I tried to find a way to say that he is not a great play, I don't see a day like a game script to where he flops this week. So I do like him too. I think for my tournament guy, core play. Like, I love Bijan. I'm going to go with Joe Mixon. He doesn't leave the field.
Mm-hmm.
Joe
Okay.
Mixon, or if you need savings, I still believe in Aaron Jones this week. Wide receivers, let's go one upper tier, one mid tier, one punt. I think we know who your punt is if you want to start there.
Yeah, my punt is David Moore at 3,500. My upper tier is going to be, it's a tie between Nico and Puka Nacua. If I had to choose, it would be Puka Nacua between the two. As far as a mid tier, as I'm kind of scrolling here, I mean, I don't want to say Brian Thomas, so I'm going to go up a little bit. I'll probably say Drake London if that qualifies at 6,500.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd say anything below 7K is mid tier based on this slate. Yeah, Drake London, love that. All right, upper tier for me, I'm going with Justin Jefferson. I love this game. I'm going to commit to it. Honorable mention Terry McLaurin, though, because I mentioned Jaden Daniels. Mid tier is going to be Mike Evans. I don't really care what his ownership is. I think this is a matchup where he just goes absolutely nuts.
Love it.
Punt, I guess below 5K we can call it punt. I'll give you two. I'm going Adam Thielen and Kayshon Boutte.
Okay.
Tight end, I will start us off. Trey McBride all day long, and my value would be Zach Ertz.
All right. I'm going to go with Taysom Hill and TJ Hawkinson.
Love it. Taysom. All right. Any other questions we got? We converted you Stix for Taysom Buck as a goat. Thank you for Man Bear Pig. Nice. Someone knows what I'm talking about. That is Trey McBride. See ya. Thank you so much for hopping on. I greatly appreciate it. We have tripled our audience since you hopped on, which is awesome. So congrats to you, all the success that you've had in the industry and all the help you've brought me. I love it, man. Thank you so much. This show is going to be kind of boring if it was just me rambling and telling people I'd never play Taysom Hill. So at least we get an unbiased opinion who is out there just giving good plays. So thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Happy holidays to everybody. And thank everybody for the support for hopping on the show. Love doing it. We do it for you guys. So again, if you got any other questions, hit us up on Discord, Twitter. See ya. Anything you would like to plug this morning?
Just you. For those of you listening, make sure you follow Stix Picks. He's got some stuff on Spotify, and you can catch him in Win Daily. Stix, you are one of the most talented DFS players, not just in NFL, but especially in the NFL. And I don't know that you promote yourself enough, so I'm going to promote you. Everybody, make sure you are following Stix Picks because he is going to make your bankroll bigger.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sia. Good luck to everybody this week, and excited for lock here. So hit us up on Discord and Twitter.